Coming back down. Can't you see I could but wouldn't say, wouldn't put it like that. What do you mean? I'm sorry, by the way. Never coming around. Be so sweet if things just stay the same. La da 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 da. All the lights couldn't put out the dark, running through my heart. Lights up and they know who you are, know who you are. Do you know who you are? Shine, step into the light, so bright sometimes. I'm not ever going back. Step into the light, so bright sometimes. I'm not ever going back. Step into the light, so bright sometimes. I'm not ever. What do you mean? I'm sorry, by the way. Never coming back down. Be so sweet if things just stay the same. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. All the lights couldn't put out the dark, running through my heart. Lights up and they know who you are, know who you are. Do you know who you are? Shine, step into the light, so bright sometimes. I'm not ever going back. Step into the light, so bright sometimes. I'm not ever going back. Step into the light, so bright sometimes. I'm not ever.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan Wilkins, Executive Producer of this event and the Associate Director of Development at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. On behalf of all of us at the Garden and the North Carolina Botanical Garden Foundation, I'd like to welcome you to the second annual Carolina Moonlight Virtual Garden Party. I hope you enjoyed the pre-event song from the UNC Walk-Ons with their cover of Lights Up by Harry Styles. The UNC Walk-Ons are a co-ed a cappella group from UNC Chapel Hill. Founded in 2001, the Walk-Ons are known for their fun-loving personalities that are as eclectic as the songs they sing. As you saw in their first song, they are super talented and a hilarious group of singers with a mission to have fun by spreading their passion for music. The Walk-Ons perform across UNC Chapel Hill's beautiful campus for events just like ours. They will share one more song with us at the end of tonight's program. Before we get started, I have a little Zoom housekeeping to go over with you. As an attendee, you will be muted and will not have video. You were notified when you joined today's session that it will be recorded, and by continuing in our session, you are consenting to being recorded. The recording will be emailed to you next week. You can interact during the session by sending in questions using the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of the screen for those who have joined via computer, or at the top of the screen for those who have joined via mobile device. You can also find the live transcript function here if you need closed captioning during the event. Now to the fun part. Most of you received the recipe for this year's Carolina Moonlight cocktail, the Venus Flytrap. You'll see the recipe on your screen now, and if you haven't already, I suggest heading to the kitchen and shaking one up before things get started. While you're doing that, a few fun facts about the drink. This cocktail was specially crafted by Mary at Hale M Cocktails in Southern California. Mary makes seasonal small batch syrups and bitters to create farm-to-bar cocktails and ingredients. She chose organic matcha green tea for the Venus Flytrap simple syrup for its unique nutrient profile and vegetable characteristics. Like green tea, matcha comes from the Camellia sinensis plant. However, it's grown differently. Farmers grow matcha by covering their tea plants 20 to 30 days before harvest to avoid direct sunlight. This increases chlorophyll production, boosts the amino acid content, and gives the plant a darker green tea, just like the Venus Flytrap. All right, now with everyone settled in with a drink in hand, I will step aside and introduce North Carolina Botanical Garden Director of Development, Stephen Keith, to share a few words about tonight's event host and corporate partners. Thank you so much for being here and enjoy the event.
Hello, my name is Stephen Keith and I'm the Director of Development here at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. Welcome to the Carolina Moonlight Garden Party. It's a beautiful night in the plant collections and I'm so glad to have you with us. Back in March, we realized we would have to hold the 2021 Carolina Moonlight event virtually, given the pandemic circumstances. But with the resounding encouragement from the foundation, board members, and garden supporters, we are bringing you another inspirational review of plant biodiversity, this year with a focus on carnivorous plants. During the next hour, we hope you will feel like you are right here in the collections and habitats of your botanical garden. It's wonderful to have so many of you participate tonight. There are registrants from all over the Southeast United States, of course, mainly from North Carolina, but also South Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia, as well as supporters from New York, Texas, Minnesota, and California. Welcome, everyone. All right, now that you've had time to put together your own Carolina Moonlight Venus Flytrap cocktail, let me tell you about our Carolina Moonlight event hosts. We have 22 households who have joined together to serve as event hosts for the Carolina Moonlight. On this slide, you'll see a listing of tonight's special sponsors who are providing the financial capital to help us meet that $60,000 fundraising goal to keep the garden open and available to the community. And over 50 of you have also made a donation through the Carolina Moonlight registration process to help us raise important funds for the garden. Cheers to you all. Also, a big thanks to our 2021 corporate partners and supporting businesses listed on this slide. Each year, the business community is invited to help sustain the operations of the Botanical Garden. These businesses provide the garden with a cash gift or gift-in-kind services that benefit the overall mission of the garden. I can think of one, two, or sometimes even more people associated with each one of these organizations, which are truly committed to the garden's success. All this various funding helps the garden meet its annual budget of over $3 million. And we appreciate the many other businesses in the community who will participate throughout the upcoming year as we have more and more in-person events and activities on site at the garden. We encourage you to thank and patronize these local businesses who all share the conservation values of the garden. All right, we also have Alice and John May joining us now, and they are serving as a Carolina Moonlight event host family. Alice is a board member of the North Carolina Botanical Garden Foundation, fulfilling a role as a dedicated member of the development committee. And John, well, he just loves to come with Alice into every single event. So we can't wait to have more events here at the garden. Alice, John, are you there? Thank you for participating tonight.
Welcome, everyone. What a glorious evening to celebrate the garden. I want to begin by expressing gratitude to the dedicated garden staff for keeping the botanical garden running despite the pandemic, and for sharing the beauty of the garden with us on social media. Seeing the garden via social media is not like being there in person, but it has kept us connected, just as we are this evening, with over 250 garden enthusiasts in attendance for a virtual Carolina Moonlight garden party. That is way more than we could ever fit in the Reeves Auditorium.
Well, this is nice, sweetheart, but I can't wait to be in the garden for a real evening event. You know, being there at twilight, seeing the wildflowers and fireflies, listening to the birds and the frogs and the crickets, there is nothing like it. It is a magical place.
Oh, John, you're so romantic. I so enjoy the garden as well and realize how this place brings the community together for a common purpose, to celebrate and conserve natural resources for future generations. Now that everyone is here and settled in, let's get the program started and go to the Peacock Discovery Studio as the NCBG Today Show brings us this year's Carolina Moonlight Garden Party.
Live from the Florence and James Peacock Discovery Studio in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Welcome to the North Carolina Botanical Garden Today Show. My name is Damon Waite, and I'm the director at the garden and one of your hosts for tonight. My co-host is Derek Haynes. Derek, thank you for joining us for the 2021 edition of the Carolina Moonlight Virtual Garden Party.
Well, thank you for having me. It is great to be here, and I'm excited to join you as a host this evening on the North Carolina Botanical Garden Show.
Hey, Derek, you have a large following on social media as the chocolate botanist. What's that about?
You know, I'm a whole botanist. I am a graduate of North Carolina State University, and I work at RTP at a company called Botanical. So people love me and my Instagram, and I just try to help cultivate growth in the people.
Awesome. Hey, I also understand you taught a virtual course at the garden during this pandemic year. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a phenomenal time demystifying botany together, and I can't wait until we do that in reality with all of the phenomenal biodiversity on this.
Yeah, let's do it here. You know, the garden is the place to learn and enjoy and admire the beauty of North Carolina's flora and fauna, all the way from the mountains to the coast.
That is so true. One of the coolest things about this region is all of the carnivorous plants with all of these cool names, you know, pitcher plants, bladderworts, butterworts, sundews, and of course, the most interesting plant of all, the Venus flytrap.
No kidding. That plant has its own fan base. Just look outside the studio window.
Well, why don't we kick off the evening and get everyone in a carnivorous mood with a short cartoon about Venus flytraps?
That sounds great. Roll a video.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the predatory carnivorous Venus flytrap, of course. Seasonal Science brings you Venus flytraps. Head to your local botanical garden this April or May, and you'll likely see a small white flower sprouting amid the intimidating jaws of the Venus flytrap. But how does a carnivorous plant avoid eating the insects that pollinate it? That is a question that scientists are asking as well, and although they don't yet know all of the insects that pollinate wild flytraps, they have some ideas of how it all might happen. First, the flower of the Venus flytrap is located on a stalk far above the trap. And for a plant whose meals include lots of crawling insects, flying pollinators that stay in the higher altitudes have a decent chance of avoiding the trap and pollinating successfully. Secondly, the flowers may appeal to a different set of insects altogether. For a plant that eats lots of carrion-seeking insects that are attracted to that meaty-colored interior, the type of pollinator attracted to its flower may not even give the traps a second look. The jury is still out, but what scientists do know is that beyond sunlight, water, and the occasional mineral-rich morsel, the Venus flytrap blooms better after a good fire. Yep, you heard that right. Besides the ability to survive a fire, fly traps flower quite nicely once all those taller shade-producing shrubs are out of the picture. But a word of warning. If you are in the 74-mile habitat in southeastern North Carolina that is home to flytraps and you stumble across one, don't be tempted to pick the flower or the plant. Due to its status as threatened, if you poach a Venus flytrap, it's a felony. And you're looking at 25 to 39 months in prison and a hefty fine. So as springtime rolls around, why not head to the Botanical Gardens and take some time to stop and smell the Venus flytraps.
There you go.
Wow, whoever made that had some amazing animations.
I know, right? That video was made by UNC TV. And the great thing about being part of UNC is access to all those students and their creativity and their innovation. We use them for work study as interns and even student volunteers.
Wow, that is a great spirit of collaboration.
Oh, yes. Collaboration is what we do best, especially with our affiliated foundation, the North Carolina Botanical Garden Foundation. Without their support, we couldn't do half the things we do for plant conservation. Not only do they serve as a local land trust, they also sponsor big projects here at the garden. And we are fortunate tonight to have Ann Harris, president of the foundation, as our first guest on the Today Show. Ann, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, David, and thanks so much to you and Derek for having me tonight. On behalf of the North Carolina Botanical Garden Foundation, I'd like to thank all of you for your support of both the foundation and the garden, and for joining us for this special evening. The Moonlight Party is not just an annual event. It is also an opportunity to showcase how the garden really enriches all of our lives. And it's also an opportunity to have us focus on the garden's conservation mission and also on its land protection efforts.
Wow, well, and David mentioned the foundation has sponsored some pretty big projects at the garden. Can you tell us about that?
Right. For the last couple of years, the foundation board has truly focused on the implementation of the entranceway master plan. That plan was designed to improve the visitor experience and the garden's visibility. And it was actually the brainchild and the vision of one of our former foundation presidents, Arthur DeBerry. More recently, honorary director Marcella Grindler has inspired the board to help complete the funding for this important project. The plan was originally divided into two parts. Phase one involved the design of the entrance sign and the landscaping at the corner of 15501 and Mason Farm Road. And those efforts really helped improve the awareness of the garden and inspired people to visit, and also made the garden a lot easier to find. The phase one was completed in 2020, and more recently we focused on phase two of the entranceway master plan. This part of the plan focuses on the entrance walk and the breezeway that's adjacent to the Allen Education Center. And the hope is to make these areas more obvious, more beautiful, and certainly more accessible to the public. So that project will be finished, I think, by mid-June. And there's going to be a dedication on the 26th of June. You'll be receiving information about that important event in the near future. The entranceway and the breezeway will officially be named the Bob and Molly Broad Entrance Walk, and also the Sarah Waite Breezeway. Would you like to show us a video of how this wonderful project's been taking place?
I'd love to, Ann, but I also want to mention that visitation to the garden this spring has been through the roof. And 60% of our visitors are saying it's their first visit ever to the North Carolina Botanical Garden. That new sign and garden out front is having a big impact, and we are grateful to the foundation and past foundation leadership for helping to make it happen. Let's take a look at what that construction looks like.
Great video. I love seeing the plan come together. We have Dan Stern, the garden's horticultural director and project manager for the entranceway plan, joining us now. Dan, congrats on the success of this project.
Thanks, Derek. It's been a labor of love and a really fun socially distanced team project.
Phenomenal. All of the plantings out front native plants?
They sure are. All the native grasses and wildflowers native to the southeastern U.S. They'll provide a splash of color throughout the season. And the design really demonstrates how native plants can be used at a large scale to create an aesthetically pleasing display. You can enjoy it from a distance while you're zooming down 15501.
I know people drive too fast on that road. It is amazing though what you can do with native plants. Hey, Dan, I understand the garden just got a big award for its horticultural practices.
Yeah, that's correct, Damon. The American Horticultural Society solicits nominations from the general public once a year for individuals and organizations that embody the best practices in gardening and horticulture. These are horticultural champions, and we were very honored to be nominated and the inaugural recipient of the Garden Stewardship Award, which is given to a garden that embodies and embraces the best practices of sustainability in horticultural programs, management, and displays.
Wowzers, what an honor for the garden.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's one thing to say you're a conservation garden. It's a whole other thing to be recognized by your peers as one. We have gone from being a conservation garden to being the conservation garden.
I know that's real. Thank you, Dan, for sharing with us. But I see someone else coming to the Peacock Discovery Studio. Is it a botanist? No, it's a super botanist, my hero.
Hey, guys.
Hey, that's right, Derek. Our next guest is Dr. Alan Wheatley, Director of the UNC Herbarium. Hi, Alan. Where have you been and what have you been up to lately?
Well, I've kind of been up to the usual, going out, finding new species, describing them, teaching the next generation of botanists. And we also just released a new edition of the Flora of the Southeastern U.S. that covers over 10,000 species.
That's a lot of species and a lot of downloads. So far, I've heard there's been over 5,000 downloads of that flora from all over the world. Congratulations on your lifelong effort to catalog biodiversity.
Thanks.
Alan, your flora documents biodiversity in Southeast United States. Could you explain to our viewers what biodiversity is and why it's so important?
Well, Derek, it so happens I put together a little video clip that talks about what is biodiversity and why the Southeast U.S. has such rich biodiversity, and especially North Carolina.
Let's take a look at that video.
Biodiversity was a word that was coined from the phrase biological diversity, refers to the variety of life on Earth at all of its levels, from genes to ecosystems, and can encompass the evolutionary, ecological, and cultural processes that sustain life. Plants, specifically, supply food to nearly all terrestrial organisms, including humans. We eat either plants or other organisms that eat plants. Plants maintain the atmosphere. They produce the oxygen we breathe. They regulate the compounds in the atmosphere. They protect us from UV radiation through the ozone layer, and they remove carbon dioxide which reduces the greenhouse effect and global warming. Plants also recycle matter in biogeochemical cycles. They move enormous amounts of water from the soil to the atmosphere, making rain. And plants directly provide many products that we use directly, such as medicines. Even nowadays, most of our medicines come indirectly or directly from plants. They also produce timber and fuel and fibers and so forth that we use. And they create the habitat and context for nearly all other organisms. So food sources for animals, insects, etc. So if we look at a map of global biodiversity, and in this case, focusing on plants, the bright red and pink and blue colors are where there's high biodiversity. When we look at global biodiversity, we see a striking pattern that plant biodiversity and most other groups of organisms as well are most diverse near the equator and less diverse as we go away from the equator in either direction. Tropical biodiversity is different than temperate, is different from boreal. biodiversity. Different species occur in those different areas, so it's not a trade-off. And the southeastern United States is particularly rich in temperate biodiversity. If we look at, zoom into the United States and look at plant species diversity, we see the greens and blues of areas that have high diversity, mainly in eastern and particularly southeastern United States and also California. If we jump up to the genus level, we also see that the Southeast is rich, as well as the Southwest and California. If we hop up another level to plant family diversity, the situation changes, and we see that the Southeast is where it's at. And why is that? It's because the Southeast has been a resilient refuge for biodiversity and generator of biodiversity for tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of years. And that gives us real hope for the future that the Southeast can also hold on to biodiversity well going forward. But when we look at the southeastern US, a lot of times we think of it as looking sort of like this, kind of forested and green and nice, but maybe a little bit boring. But we have to realize that the Southeast has a tremendous diversity of habitats, from rocky places to deep soils, from cold to hot, from wet to dry, from high pH soils to low pH soils, et cetera. So it is this kind of diversity of environmental factors that lead to a diversity of life. Elevation, which is a surrogate for temperature, we have sea level up to the highest elevations in eastern North America. So we have a climate transect across North Carolina. When we look at the geology of North Carolina, we essentially have all of the rock types present on Earth, all squeezed into the borders of North Carolina. So very high geologic diversity. And we have some climate diversity with the highest rainfall areas east of the Pacific Northwest, down in the southwest corner of North Carolina, Joyce-Kilmer, Highlands, North Carolina area. And we also have a diversity of fire regimes that shape the vegetation and the natural communities of our region. So when we boil it all down and look specifically at North Carolina has really high plant biodiversity and a lot of narrowly distributed endemic species and threatened species. In this map, we see the hot oranges and pinks where there's very high endemism and imperiled species. And we can once again see that that is really concentrated in the Southeast and the mountains, the Piedmont and the coastal plain, as well as some other parts of the country. And the richness of the coastal plain led Reed Noss, famous conservation biologist, and colleagues in 2014 to designate the southeastern coastal plain as a biodiversity hotspot, the 35th so designated in the world. And in its context, here are the other biodiversity hotspots. You can see that they are mostly located towards the equator or in warm temperate areas. The hotspot designation is kind of a good news, bad news situation. It designates areas that have really high and unique biodiversity, but that also have very high threats to the biodiversity that they have. Let's turn to the southeastern coastal plain and focus on it a little bit. Land of the longleaf pine, why we are called the Tar Heel State. The predominant ecosystem that once covered most of the coastal plain of North Carolina was the longleaf pine ecosystem. It has now been heavily reduced, strongly reduced by the naval stores industry and conversion to agriculture, land conversion to agriculture, forestry, industrial forestry, cities, and so forth. So we don't see as much of this longleaf pine ecosystem as we once did. It's a highly imperiled ecosystem, and therefore all of the species that are in it are also highly imperiled. Now, one of the really special groups in the southeastern United States, and specifically North Carolina, are carnivorous plants. And carnivory evolved because of the limitation in acid soils of a couple of nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus. And those nutrients are heavily available in animal bodies. So plants evolved independently many times in various different plant groups in nutrient-poor parts of the world to develop in carnivory or insectivory. And they've also evolved a whole various set of different mechanisms, from snap traps like Venus flytrap to flypaper traps like butterwort and sundews with sticky substances that insects get caught by and then digested, to pitfall trap. You may be able to see the hairs in the pitcher plant all facing downward so that an insect, once it gets started down that tube, it's all downhill to death. Carnivory is one of the richest areas for it in the world is in the southeastern United States. And we have 3 families of plants that are carnivorous, 5 genera, and 40 species in the southeastern US.
Wow, thank you for explaining biodiversity. I would love to take a class to learn more. Do you do any teaching?
I do. I teach a number of courses at the university, including one that focuses on the flora from around here, local flora. I really just love getting out in the forests and fields with students, or frankly, just about anybody, and looking at plants.
Yeah, Alan, I'd love to go see some of those murderous plants. Where would you suggest I go to see them?
Well, a really great place is the Nature Conservancy's Green Swamp Preserve down near Wilmington. You can see the insectivorous plants and also a lot of orchids and other rare plants and animals. Great place.
Nice. I hope to get out there one day. You know, in the meantime, I hear there's some very important Venus flytrap research coming out these days. Let's see what garden ecologist Mike Kuntz is up to. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Mike Kuntz, the conservation ecologist here at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. One plant that I think is really special from the southeastern coastal plain is Venus flytraps. It's endemic to only the Carolinas. It's the only place in the world where you can find that plant in the wild, even though you can probably find it and recognize it from just about anywhere in the world. One of the things that makes it so recognizable is that it has a trap that it uses to actively catch insects. It uses those insects to supplement the nutrients that it doesn't get from growing really poor nutrient soils in these wet savannas. The trap is something that is a focus of a lot of research on Venus flytraps, and with good reason. It's really interesting. It's something that's fascinated botanists for hundreds of years. But it wasn't until recently that there's really been a flurry of activity into understanding the research of the ecology of Venus flytrap. This is a species that's rare and becoming more rare, and it's something that we're trying to understand more and more every day. And currently there's a whole set of researchers across North Carolina and elsewhere that are researching things like its effects of fire on Venus flytraps and climate change, the genetics, and even the pollinators. Like all flowering plants, Venus flytrap and other carnivorous plants need insects for pollinators. They move the pollen around to increase diversity and to make seeds so that they can have new generations of these exquisite plants. So Venus flytraps and all carnivorous plants have a dilemma because they need the pollinators to spread pollen around and help keep genetic diversity in their populations and make seeds to recruit new individuals, but they also rely on those insects as prey to supplement their nutrients. So one of the things that we worked on here at the garden is we were part of a large team that did research on this predator-prey dilemma in Venus flytraps. We went out into the swamps and the savannas of eastern North Carolina, and we collected pollinators and observed their behavior, as well as opened the traps to see what it was that they were eating. As a result of this research, we found out that Venus flytrap actually doesn't eat its pollinators, which is probably a good thing, and that there is these separations in carnivorous plants between what they eat and what pollinates them. So one of the ways that we think that carnivorous plants don't eat their pollinators is to separate in either space or time where or when they flower. So some may put flowers out before they have any sort of active traps going on, collecting prey. In Venus flytrap though, they're flowering at the same time their traps are active. So what they probably are doing is setting up a large flowering stalk that sticks up about 15 inches above the ground, maybe a little less, which is much above the traps. So the pollinators are flying in and out of the flowers, while their prey are mostly crawling insects spiders, ants, and beetles. Here's a graph from our research paper. It shows a network. On the top, you can see all of the species, the different lines, and the different colors represent different species of pollinators that we found. On the bottom are the insects that we found in the traps. And then you can see here in the middle on this network that there's very little overlap between the pollinators that visit and the insects that we find in the traps. If you haven't ever seen Venus flytraps in flower, it's coming up on a time of year where it's a great time to go out to these coastal plain savannas, to see Venus flytraps in the wild, and to see them flowering and observe some pollinators. Damon, if you've never done it, Green Swamp is a great place to go check this out.
Thanks, Mike. I especially appreciate you including that bar histogram to explain what's going on. You know, everyone keeps talking about the Green Swamp. I'm going to get down there someday.
That sounds phenomenal. But Damon, you know, I've been thinking about this. Do you think we should call this plant the Venus attacks plant or the creepy crawly cruncher?
You know, well, you know, Derek, as you know, the International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, there are no rules governing the application of common names, so we can call it whatever we want. But what would we do with the 764 people who've already bought a Venus flytrap license plate?
I can answer that.
Why, it's Dr. Johnny Randall, the Garden's Director of Conservation Programs.
So it's great to be here and having fun tonight. Hope everybody else is. So this is the Venus flytrap specialty license plate that 764 people have ordered. It's currently in the North Carolina legislature. It passed the House unanimously, and right now it's with the Senate. So, and we expect the same outcome there. So by summertime, midsummer, we hope that everyone who has pre-ordered one of these will have it on their car, and other people around the state are going to want one of these too. So, and that can be you.
That is phenomenal. I would love for it to be me. How else is the North Carolina Botanical Gardens involved in the conservation work of this Venus attacks plant?
Well, the Botanical Garden does have a role in preserving and protecting Venus flytrap for the future. We work with lots of conservation partners in the state, as well as local landowners, to protect critical habitat. And we are working with the Carolina Genome Center at UNC, who's doing a genetic architecture study that will provide information showing how Venus flytrap has moved around the landscape over time. And preliminary results show that there are 4 distinct groups and that they match very nicely with geography. But we're also going to be able to tell the difference between the genetic differences within and between populations. So we're really excited about that. But we also do seed banking. We have seeds, over 94,000 seeds that are stored in our North Carolina Botanical Garden seed bank. And they're placed in vacuum sealed envelopes and frozen for future study and also for restoration purposes. And this is a long recognized conservation practice. So we're really excited about that.
Well, thanks, Johnny. Hey, I also want to thank Preston Montague, who did the artwork for this amazing Venus flytrap license plate. So we're learning so much here tonight, but I've heard there are also a few myths about carnivorous plants, especially the Venusian ant and spider trap. Yeah. Let's see how much our audience knows about this subject and go to our Director of Education, Joanna Lalikas. Joanna, you did a bit of research on this topic and you're out in the field. What's going on out there?
Hello, Derek and Damon. I am out here in the courtyard gardens with some beautiful pitcher plants. And we are about to bust some myths of carnivorous plants with the help of our plant savvy audience. All they have to do is check true or false on their computers to answer the questions. So let's bust some myths. Here we go. Question number 1. The favorite food of the Venus flytrap is flies. Well, it is a fly trap. What do you all think? Is that accurate? Do you think that a fly is the favorite food? Click the radio button for true or false on your screen to input your answer to this question. We want to know what you think. And if it's not flies, what is it? Maybe we'll find out. But maybe it is flies. Okay, let's wrap up this poll. Put in your comments. And here we go. The correct answer is false. So, what are the favorite foods? Ants, spiders, and beetles are the most common foods. And it looks like about 80% of our audience got this right. Great job, everyone. Let's go on to question number 2. Carnivorous plants carry out photosynthesis and get additional nutrients from the prey that they catch. Another way to ask this, do they create their own nutrients from the sun as well as from the prey they catch? Photosynthesis is a process which green plants use sunlight to make nutrients from carbon dioxide and water. So what do you think? Is this true for carnivorous plants too? Enter your answer now, true or false, and let's wrap up this poll. And the correct answer is true. Yes, carnivorous plants carry out photosynthesis and get additional nutrients from their prey, and you got it 100% correct. We do have a plant savvy audience here. Let's try the next question, number 3. A type of wasp builds its nest inside a pitcher plant. Wow, you think this is true? What do you think? Enter true or false. Wouldn't this insect-eating plant eat that insect too? I don't know. Could it be true? Maybe it's false. We want to know what you think. Let us know. Just a couple more seconds to enter your responses. And let's wrap up this poll. And the correct answer is true. Yes, this is a grass-carrying wasp in the genus Isodontia. We had about 90% correct on that. That's really great. You all are knocking this out of the ballpark. Let's keep going on to the next question. Number 4, carnivorous plants secrete digestive enzymes to break down their prey. Secrete digestive enzymes, that's such an animal sounding thing, isn't it? People have digestive enzymes in our stomachs. Do plants do this too? Could this be? Enter your response, true or false. And let's wrap up this poll. And the correct answer is true. Yes, this is a true event for these amazing plants. And we had, again, about 90% get this correct. So great job, everyone. We're going to give you another chance here on question number 5. Venus flytraps were introduced to Earth from Venus on asteroids causing the Carolina bays. What do you think? This is a hard one. I mean, Venus is in the name. It's an 80s song, isn't it? Well, maybe so. I'll get back to the point of the question here. What do you all think? Is this an alien plant, or did it arise here right on Earth? Enter your response, true or false. And let's wrap up this poll. And the correct answer is false. These amazing plants evolved here on our amazing planet Earth. And we had 90% of the audience get this right. So y'all are doing great. Let's, for those who didn't get it right, we have an opportunity for you to redeem yourselves. We have a few more questions. Number 6, one type of mosquito larvae hatch and develop into adults in the digestive juices of pitcher plants. Mosquitoes, now think back. Were these one of the favorite foods we talked about earlier? Oh, well, that was Venus flytraps. So we're talking about pitcher plants now. Have there been any other clues in this program that might give you the answer to this? I could check in our pitcher plants here, but maybe I'll look a little bit later. All right, let's wrap up this poll. True or false? The correct answer is true. Apparently these mosquito larvae are not a favorite food. And about 80% of our audience got this correct. Great job. Y'all are really doing wonderfully here. And we've got just a few more questions for you. Question number 7. Poaching Venus flytraps is a felony in North Carolina. True or false? Y'all are getting pretty quick on your responses here. What do you think? Poaching is often associated with respect to poaching animals or trespassing for the purpose of stealing or killing threatened animal species. Is it illegal for plants as well? The cartoon earlier in the program may have given you a clue, hint, hint. Is it true or false? Let's wrap up this poll, and the correct answer is true. Poaching Venus flytraps is illegal as a felony in North Carolina. And our audience, everyone in our audience who responded got that right. Great job, everyone. Couple more opportunities here. Question number 8. Half of the North American carnivorous plant species occur in North Carolina. Is this true or false? Could this be? North Carolina is pretty small and the country is pretty big. I don't know. Is North Carolina that special? Did we hear anything in the previous program that may have given you a hint to this? Maybe Alan Weekly? No, enter your answers, true or false. And the correct answer, wrapping up this little poll, is true. Alan Weekly described the biodiversity hotspot that North Carolina sits within. 100% from the audience. Great job. Such plant savvy people we have here. And for the last question of the evening, number 9, Venus flytraps have been known to eat people. Well, there is a whole movie about this, right? Was it based on fact or was that based on fiction? When did that movie take place? I can't quite remember. I thought I saw something moving behind me, but maybe it's just the heat. I'm not so sure. Enter your final answers now, true or false. Let's wrap up this poll, and the correct answer is false. You know, this only happens in the movies, right? Whoa! I'm getting eaten by a Venus flytrap, a giant one. Remember, this only happens in the movie. Back to you, Derek and Damon. Woo!
Oh my gosh, did you see that? It's a little shop of horrors out there. I hope Joanna's all right.
Indeed, I hope she is too, but I'm amazed by the carnivorous plant collection at the North Carolina Botanical Gardens. You know, I was here a few weeks ago to watch the pitcher plant flowers emerge, and now they're in full flower, looking all nice and floral, and it just directly behind the Totten Center, and I'm just excited.
Yeah, it's a stellar flower show right now at the garden. I hope our viewers will come out and see it for themselves in person. But for now, let's take a tour with garden curator Chris Laloya to see the collection. And we'll follow that up with the pitcher plant leaf dissection by one of our summer camp graduates.
Hi, I'm Chris Laloya, and I'm the Habitat Gardens curator here at NCBG. And one of the things I do is take care of the carnivorous plant collections. We grow all kinds of southeastern native carnivorous plants and other stuff in these beds, and spring is a great time to see it because the pitcher plants are blooming. So the very first thing to bloom here is the yellow pitcher plant, or trumpets, Sarracenia flava, and you can see that happening right now. Pitcher plants do a cool thing where they bloom before they make next year's or the new pitchers, so that they don't eat their pollinators. So what you see this time of year, because we've cleaned up the beds, is just the flowers, and then later in the season the pitchers will come along and fill in. We grow all kinds of different stuff in these beds. These collections were developed by Rob Gardner, who was a former curator, one of the originals here and he was really passionate about pitcher plants and collected all kinds of wonderful plant material. So we have it arranged in, like, this bed right behind me is the plants that grow along the Atlantic coast. So these are the ones that you would find in North Carolina. We also have beds that are representative of the Gulf Coast, of the plants that would grow in mountain bogs, and also we have a bed that's full of the hybrids that Rob Gardner and his buddy Larry Melchamp at UNC Charlotte created. So crosses between 2 or more species of pitcher plants, and then other folks' hybrids as well, because that really became a popular thing to do, and there's lots of great hybrids out there in the trade. The straight species tend to be, you know, the petals are a single color, generally either red or yellow. There are some that are pink and a little bit more purple, but in the hybrids, when you cross 2 species, often you get a combination of the characteristics from both plants. So if you cross a red and a yellow, sometimes you get flowers with petals that are both red and yellow, or some of the hybrids have really deep orange petals. So there's a lot of other cool stuff happening in that bed too. So after the pitcher plants bloom, the pitchers will develop, and then these beds are super fun because you get to see all the cool pitchers. We're looking at the hybrid bed here, and the plants in this picture were, you know, developed and selected for different characteristics, but one of them is very colorful pitcher, so this is always a fun one. And then after that, we have all kinds of other things that we grow in here with the pitcher plants, a bunch of different kinds of plants that grow in similar growing conditions, so acidic, low nutrient soils with lots of sun and constant moisture. So there's always something going on in these beds. It's always a good time to visit. Rose pink orchids are one of the first non-carnivorous plants to bloom in these beds. Of course, the flytraps and the sundews will be blooming, and the next round of orchids is the grass pink, and that's the like really bright, showy, bigger pink orchids. The orchids actually go, you know, throughout the growing season. So even like they finish up in mid-November is when the nodding ladies tresses bloom, and that happens at the same time that the white top pitcher plants put on a fall flush of growth. So even late fall is a great time to be here and see this stuff. The white top pitcher plants are also particularly colorful. You know, they're a combination of green and white and red, so really fun ones to see. But then right in the middle, all summer long, we have different lilies blooming, and you could, you know, try and find it out in a natural area, or you could just come see some really showy plants at the garden here. So there's always a lot going on in these beds, and we hope that you will come enjoy it with us.
Hi there, my name is Neville Handel, and I'm the land manager at the North Carolina Botanical Garden, and this is my daughter, Liren.
Hi.
Liren has been a student at the summer camps for how many years?
2.
2, okay, and what did you like most about being a student at the summer camps?
Well, I loved going to Mason Farm and the Secret Life of Bugs camp, and the art camp was really fun to learn how to draw all the different animals.
Nice. Did you learn a lot at the camps?
Yeah, I did.
Did you learn anything about pitcher plants?
Yeah, in Secret Life of Bug camp, we learned a good amount of what carnivorous plants eat and how bugs are attracted to it.
Okay, so we've got pitcher plants here, and we've got some sundews. What's another carnivorous plant that you've learned about?
The Venus flytrap.
Okay, cool. So carnivorous plants, they have to eat insects because the soils that they grow on are so nutrient poor that they don't get enough nutrients just from the soils that they're living in. So they have to lure in insects. Now the question is, how would something like a pitcher plant lure in an insect?
Well, first of all, they have a sweet liquid inside, or nectar, that attracts the bugs and is sticky, so they get stuck in it. There are also hairs inside of the pitcher plant that make it so that the bug cannot fly out.
So over time that bug gets stuck in there and just gets digested?
Yep.
Wow. That sounds pretty gross, but pretty cool too. Yeah. Okay. So have you ever looked inside a pitcher plant leaf before?
No, I haven't.
Would you be interested in doing so?
Yes, I would.
All right, I think we should do that. Okay, so we are holding some leaves from last year from these pitcher plants, and we are going to dissect these. So we're going to cut them open and see what might be inside. What do you think might be inside?
Probably a lot of ants, maybe some beetles.
Yeah, maybe. What about like dragonflies maybe, or flies, anything like that?
Flies definitely. Dragonflies might be a little too big to come inside of most of these.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens, okay? Let's get ready to cut one open. Why don't you go ahead and do that one first?
Ew, ew. It's just gross.
You want to smell that?
Nope, not really.
All right. Let's take a look and see what's in here. See if you can recognize anything. Whoa!
There's a wasp.
That's a wasp.
Oh, one of them's still alive. That's kind of
Alive?
gross. Yeah, there was like a little fly in there.
Whoa, look at that.
And there looks like a lot of ants. Oh, there's a fly in there. I see its shining golden outline.
Yeah, so a lot of what's in here, it's kind of hard to tell what it is, but there are some things you can clearly see, like this wasp right here.
And the fly.
Yeah, but then a lot of it is just kind of digested and goopy.
That looks kind of like a caterpillar. Definitely
There's
some
some
flies.
beetles and some flies. I'm afraid to open up down here and see what's in there. Look at the wings.
That's dirt. It looks like dirt.
Well,
Oh, I did not want to see that.
that's the part you don't want to see. No, that's pretty gross. But that's that sticky liquid and what's left of it that was luring the insects in, probably.
Yep.
This one liked ladybugs, though.
Yeah, look.
A whole lot of them. It smells like pond water.
How did you not react to that? It's like smelling it's like smelling Sequoia's breath after he ate. Sequoia's our dog.
So what'd you think? Was that pretty cool?
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing that you can see stuff like that here at the garden, right?
Yeah, but it was also kind of gross.
It was kind of
I
gross.
got bug guts on my fingers. So.
Yeah, you did. You did. Well, that doesn't happen to everybody when they come to the garden. But
definitely
you all
not.
should come to the garden. It's a great place. You can see our beautiful carnivorous plant collection amongst other things that we have here.
And great hiking areas.
Great hiking areas and all of our natural areas. And hopefully, before too long, all of our education programs will be back open and summer camp will be available to kids just like you, right?
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Great. This is a great place to take your children, your nieces, your nephews, or your grandchildren to see carnivorous plants and learn how they survive in the wild.
Yeah, connecting kids to nature is a big part of the garden's mission. And it's our amazing education staff that designs these programs that really cultivate a love for the environment in kids.
Does the garden offer school programs and summer camps for kids?
Oh, you know it. Many children are first introduced to the garden through summer camp, and it's called, of all things, Camp Flytrap. Yeah, we also have field trips. But, you have to register the day it opens for Camp Flytrap because it fills up the same day.
That is phenomenal. So people should just make sure they register and help to stimulate the botanical imagination of a child.
Yeah, we want to make sure the next generation has a deep love of plants and the environment. And kids like Lyran just may be the next Derek or Damon.
Right on, right on. Speaking of kids in the future and stuff, my friend Bree and I think about her and her life. She fell in love with plants at an early age, and that passion led her to have a phenomenal career as a horticulturist.
Yeah, in fact, I heard she created a special video to teach us about how to grow and propagate carnivorous plants. I can't wait to see it. Bree is also a foundation board member. She does a lot to promote the garden and its mission. Let's watch her video now.
Welcome to the North Carolina Botanical Gardens Carolina Moonlight Virtual Party. My name is Bree Arthur.
And my name is Preston Montague. And tonight we're going to show you how to grow native carnivorous plants in your garden and in containers. Hi, I'm Preston Montague, landscape architect practicing in North Carolina. You may see behind me some fabulous North Carolina natives, the jewel boxes of the East, plants in the genus Sarracenia. These are pitcher plants, and for those of you who are enthusiastic about North Carolina native plants, these should be relatively familiar, although the blooms, these beautiful sculptural blooms, these pendulous lantern-like blooms are a hallmark of one of our most cherished plants that a lot of folks enjoy growing in the landscape, but you know, growing carnivorous plants in the landscape takes a lot of intention. It's not something that you can stumble into, although honestly, all of us give it a try and kill a few at first. But if you're interested in including carnivorous plants from North Carolina in your landscape, you want to be very intentional about how you do it, and one of the ways is deciding, okay, what is the space it's going to be in? If you imagine its habitat in eastern North Carolina, you can imagine that it comes from deep, peaty environments where there's very little nutrition and the habitat is very specialized and it's frequently inundated with water, saturated even. And so how do you recreate those conditions in the landscape? Well, for those of you who are also familiar with the concept of rain gardens, you can put these devices in the landscape that either detain or retain water. This is an example of an intentional bog. So water comes into it and it maybe leaks out, but it's meant to really hold on. And so it has this lens of water on top of clay, and it's filled with some sort of medium, perhaps sphagnum or peat moss, to help not only keep a very acidic, low nutrient load environment, but also holds onto the water like a sponge. Here, maybe 4, 6, 8 inches on top of maybe even a pond liner if it's a relatively dry location. That way it holds onto the water. But look what happens when you carve this lens out of the landscape where rainwater naturally infiltrates. You add a pond liner, and then you heap up soil around the edges, maybe use boulders or other stonework or masonry like pavers, and you can grow plants from all over the world around your native jewel box.
Today, I'm going to show you how fun and easy it can be to include carnivorous plants in containers in your own home garden. But before we get started, let's head off to the North Carolina State Farmers Market so that we can find some botanical treasures. So I am at the North Carolina State Farmers Market in Raleigh, North Carolina, at Growing Green Nursery, Succulents and Unusual Plants, and I was so stoked to find all of these carnivorous plants for my demo. And thanks to this handsome gentleman, I have gotten all of my questions answered.
Yes, hey everybody, I'm Corey. I'm with Growing Green. We grow everything from carnivorous plants to rare exotics and tropicals. We have a wide variety of things that we have out here, and we would love to see you out here.
Well, thank you so much for making all of my dreams come true with all the carnivorous plants that I'm going to bring home and make awesome containers out of. The first step in creating your own carnivorous bog is to find a container that doesn't have drainage holes. Now, I know this is contrary to how you would grow most plants, but that's what makes carnivorous plants so special. They really appreciate the extra moisture. I've located several containers that will be perfect for this year's plantings of mixed things, including pitcher plants, Venus flytraps, and sundews. Now, soil is always one of the more confusing aspects about being able to successfully cultivate these bog-loving plants.
traditional potting soil really isn't ideal for growing carnivorous plants. Instead, look for a soil with sphagnum moss or peat moss, and then add in sharply drained, clean sand. This will lead you to a successful experience growing all of your favorite native carnivorous plants. I love the look of these mixed containers, and I'm so excited that I found these two really beautiful pots, again with no drainage holes, that I can do 2 individual plantings in. So the process again is going to be very similar. Just going to put some of that bog soil that I purchased today when I bought the plants. I love that Growing Green Nursery sold a pre-mixed bog soil to ensure that these plants will thrive. It's also important to recognize that bog plants appreciate extra moisture in the summer season as they're actively growing.
Bree, look at this. Oh, I love these carnivorous plants in containers. It reminds me of the bog garden. We have containers, I guess they don't have holes, so they detain water. And then they have, this the substrate that reminds me of what was in the bog garden. It's like peat and sand.
You know what was so great about this is the nursery that I bought the plants from actually had the bog soil available for purchase.
Oh, right.
So that I was set up for success.
Excellent.
That's often the hardest part, getting the soil right.
Yeah.
And I feel really confident that I'm going to have a successful experience.
It's like a great way to share these wonderful North Carolina natives throughout the garden by putting them in containers and just kind of moving them around and having a lot of fun and learning how they grow. What do they communicate to you about what kind of care they need? So when you finally move to the bog garden, you kind of know what to do.
Exactly.
All right.
Well, and I just want to extend appreciation to the hardworking staff at the North Carolina Botanical Garden who piqued my interest about Sarracenia and really all of these carnivorous plants, and have inspired this really fun summer 2021 growing experience. So
it's always fun to have a new growing experience. I'm Preston Montague.
And I'm Bree Arthur. Thank you so much for supporting the North Carolina Botanical Garden during tonight's Carolina Moonlight virtual party.
We hope you've been inspired to grow carnivorous plants of your own.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody.
Thanks, Bree and Preston. Damon, I saw carnivorous plants for sale at the Garden's daily plant sale area when I arrived tonight.
Absolutely. The garden shop also has these Venus flytrap note cards and t-shirts inspired by the Carolina Moonlight Garden Party.
Oh my goodness, this is some nice merch. So the garden is open?
Yes, the garden is open Tuesday through Saturday from 9 to 5 p.m. and from 1 to 5 p.m. on Sundays. In fact, we've been open for most of the pandemic.
That is amazing. I bet the community really appreciated having such a peaceful place to go during these troubling times. Speaking of peaceful places, did you ever make it out to that green swamp?
Yes, I finally did. And I got it all on video. Let's take a look.
Hey! Hey, Damon!
Whoa!
Hey,
what are you doing here?
welcome, Damon. It's great to see you.
Tom, you can't be here. The garden is closed.
Damon, I can explain. 2 months ago, I was here the end of March filming some wildflowers, and Governor Cooper announced on the radio that we were supposed to shelter in place, so that's what I did.
Tom, I think the governor meant for you to go home and shelter in place. You can't be at the garden. We've been closed for 8 weeks. How have you survived?
It's all right, Damon. It's all right. There were sandwiches in the refrigerator. There was plenty of coffee in the lounge. I found Paul Green's coffee cup, his toothbrush, and I found your hair of the dog. Thank you, sir.
What? Tom, you were supposed to be gone 10 minutes ago.
Damon, please reconsider.
I'm sorry, Tom. You gotta go.
You're a hard man.
Oh, the carnivorous plant beds at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. Weeds? What's that doing here? I can't believe Chris never misses weeds. We'll get rid of them for her. Wow, these carnivorous plants are absolutely spectacular. I wonder where I would go to see them in the wild.
Excuse me, Damon. You need to go to the Green Swamp. You can find all these plants at the Green Swamp.
Damon, you need to go now. These plants are blooming now.
I'm going to the Green Swamp. I made it! The Green Swamp, home of the longleaf pine and the Venus flytrap. Yes!
Excuse me, sir. You're in my light.
What is that? Who is that?
Damon!
Tom?
What are you doing here? Damon, if you'll remember, 1 year ago, you kicked me out of the Botanical Garden, and I live here now in the Paul Green Swamp thanks to you. You're a hard man, Damon Waite.
Tom, don't take it personally. I was just following the governor's orders.
You mean it's not personal and I'm not banished permanently from the Botanical Garden?
No, come on back. You're welcome to join us.
Does this mean, Damon, that you and I are still friends?
You know it, Tom. Best buds forever.
Damon! Friends?
Tom, just one thing. I don't think they call it the Paul Green Swamp. It's just the Green Swamp.
Excuse me, Damon. I live here, and I have proof. This is the Paul Green Swamp.
Well, okay.
Damon, while you're here, is there anything you'd like to see?
Oh, Tom, I want to see the sundews. I want to see the pitcher plants, the Venus flytrap, the longleaf pine.
Damon, where did you learn so much about the Paul Green Swamp?
I learned it while exploring North Carolina. Tom, are you vaccinated?
What do you mean, am I vaccinated? Of course I'm vaccinated. I got vaccinated at the Fly Trap Pharmacy. 2 doses of Pfizer.
Congratulations.
Damon, I can see at least a mile through this savanna, and the tops of the longleaf don't touch all the way out. And I know you've been in Texas, Louisiana, and much of the Southeast. What's your takeaway when you visit a place like this?
Yeah, there's no better ecosystem than the longleaf pine savanna, especially one that's been managed by fire like this one so well. I've seen it in Texas, and of course it stretches through Louisiana, Florida, right up the East Coast through the coastal plain of North Carolina. Amazing biodiversity out here. What's your take?
My takeaway is that we almost lost it. At one time we had, I think, 93 million acres in the Southeast, and now we're down just to literally 2 or 3 million acres of preserved longleaf savanna. And it's places like this that hold the highest biodiversity. This isn't just a grass in a pine forest. This is grass filled with orchids and carnivorous plants and things that we'd never see anywhere else. And the other thing I take away from the Green Swamp is that it was made possible by incredible organizations and individuals. The Nature Conservancy, state parks, the National Forest, and the Land Trust. But most importantly, organizations like the North Carolina Botanical Garden has taught generations about the Green Swamp and places like it. And that's why we need to support the people who buy these places and protect them, but also support the Botanical Garden. And that's why we need your support for the North Carolina Botanical Garden.
So, Tom, you've been out here a whole year. What was it like during the different seasons?
Damon, the great thing about a place like this, about a longleaf savanna, is that it literally changes the entire year.
Yeah.
From early spring all the way through fall. You have different lilies, different orchids, pitcher plants in different phases, and different birds from spring all the way through fall. No place has more life.
What do you say we go back?
Damon, did you really mean it when you said I was welcome back to the garden?
Yeah, Tom, I mean, you're welcome on Tuesday through Saturday from 9 to 5 and Sunday 1 to 5, but you can't live there.
That's a pretty hard bargain. Anything else I'd have to do?
Well, I think you ought to become a member, Tom.
Sounds like a deal to me.
Let's do it.
Wow, that's amazing that you got to go to the Green Swamp and you found Tom Earnhardt. He's been missing for like a year.
Yeah, and thanks to Tom, well-known naturalist and creator of Exploring North Carolina, I was able to see many of the carnivorous plants we were talking about tonight.
That's amazing. Well, how can the good folks joining us tonight share that experience?
Lots of ways. The garden hosts field trips to natural areas, including one to the Green Swamp that's coming up. It might be filled up already. Check our website for that and for upcoming classes, trips, lectures. And I think we got a virtual lunchbox talk coming up next week on monitoring and management of the Green Swamp.
Well, that is great, and I'm excited. Thank you for that, Damon. And I see Stephen King is here, the Garden's Director of Development. He's joined us as a guest. Hey, Stephen.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Derek. I trust everyone had enjoyed this evening, had a great entertaining and educational time. This was the NCBG Today Show edition of Carolina Moonlight. And what a trip to the Green Swamp, Damon. Preserving land to maintain biodiversity while educating the public on growing and propagating native plants is like the very essence of the North Carolina Botanical Garden. This garden was one of the first local public amenities to reopen during the pandemic. And as Damon said, it has consistently seen high visitation numbers each week. We reopened back in the late summer of 2020. And for many months, the plant sales, the garden shop, the facility rentals, and most on-site programming were shuttered, impacting various revenue streams that keep the garden operational. That said, the garden needs the community's support now more than ever. Many of you have joined the efforts to support the garden through this Carolina Moonlight event. As of this moment, we are 75% towards our $60,000 fundraising goal for Carolina Moonlight. So thank you so much. And next week, we're going to send you bonus content of a pitcher plant leaf dissection completed right here at the Botanical Garden. After tonight's broadcast, you will receive an email providing you the opportunity to keep the garden's mission thriving. Please help us surpass the event fundraising goal so the garden can continue to serve as a beacon of hope for plant and land conservation.
Thanks, Stephen. Well, Derek, what an amazing night this has been. I want to thank you and all of our viewers for celebrating North Carolina's biodiversity with us tonight.
Wowzers. Well, this has truly been a magnificent occasion. I want to thank you for letting me share it with you, for making space for me here and allowing me to show my support for the garden. So what do you say we play that second song from the UNC Walk-Ons?
Yeah, let's do that. Sounds good to me.
Without you, it's a blue, blue world. The sun is shining in the sky, ain't a cloud inside. It's all brilliant, everybody's in a play, and don't you know? It's a beautiful new day. Hey, running down the avenue, see how the sun shines bright in the city, on the streets where once was pity. Mr. Blue Sky is living here today. had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey there, Mr. Blue, we're so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Hey there, Mr. Blue, we're so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Blue sky, Mr. Blue sky, Mr. Blue sky, bright, Mr. Blue sky.
Gonna grab me.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, from the Florence and James Peacock Discovery Studio at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Come back and visit.
Wake up, darling, sun shining on the sea. Fog's lifted, yonder's the shore. I do my best to put the world right at your feet. Hang the moon outside your door. Why, I'm taking you down to a home on the river. Taking you down to that great big old bay, where nothing's forsaken and all is forgiven. Oh, love of my life, I wanna lead you astray. When you found me, I was lonesome and terrified. Barely could speak your first name. Then you showed me the wonders of the world outside. Now I'm trying to do the same. Oh, I'm taking you down to a home on the river. Taking you down that great big old bay, where nothing's forsaken and all is forgiven. Oh, love of my life, I wanna lead you astray. There's no time like the present for testing the metal of love. Be no time like the future, my friend, to ponder the heavens above. And there's a place in my heart where peace on earth is close at hand. You can go there with me, place where the live oak, Spanish moss still command just as far as you see. Oh, I'm taking you down to a home on the river, taking you down that great big old bay, where nothing's forsaken and all is